therapy accessible and convenient for our clients in Florida and New York, and of course, sharing information worldwide. As you know, we've been having a bunch of different little conversations, and so today we're having just one more conversation. So, um, one of the things that okay, so I totally just realized that this whole thing of me saying, "Hey, let's be quiet for a few seconds so I could do the intro," all got onto the recording. So, hey, you guys get to see what I did before we started acting all professional. Okay, so y'all know we've been having all sorts of conversations and about, progressing, moving forward, and things of that nature. And today is just another one of these conversations. For me, we've talked about social justice. We can talk about a lot of these things, but one of the things that for me is important is that financial piece, being able to use our financial power, being able to get to a place as a people financially, because a lot of stuff is important, but if your money's not right, it doesn't matter what you're doing. So for me, that's why today I wanted to talk about some of that stuff. And to help me have this conversation, I wanted to bring with me a few people. I have notes. I know them. I really do. I know all those people, but I have notes. So I have Elise Milholm, who is a financial services professional and an entrepreneur who knows a little bit about financial stuff. And I have Francisca Danastor. Francisca is a financial center manager and a community organizer. Again, somebody who knows money stuff. And finally, last but not least, we have the Graylin Houston. Look at him. He all like smiling. Graylin is a tax professional. He is the owner of Tax 360, and he does the financial education. Actually, I think all three of you guys do some level of financial education, financial literacy or financial education, and they do mortgages and business and individual taxes and stuff like that. Hey, so we have some people already that are saying hi. Hi, Imani. Hi. Danley's here. Hey, Danley. Hi, Danley. Friend Max says hi. Hi. Oh, Matt. He says hi to Fram. He didn't even say hi to me. How does that work? How does that work? Hi, Mac, even though you said hi to Fram. So.
Hey, what up, Mac?
Oh, yeah, Mac. You didn't even say hi to Graylin either. I swear. Okay, so y'all ready to get started? Because I want to talk about stuff.
Sure.
First thing I want to talk about is we often mention Matt came back with hi all. Like friend get a special hi, but we get all.
Right.
Anyways, so one of the things I want to talk about is financial literacy overall, because that is something we talk about often. We hear people mention financial literacy, and it's a word that we hear used, but what is financial literacy? And like the other thing I want to ask is, do we have a financial literacy gap?
Who wants to take that?
Come on, jump in.
I'll say that do we have a financial literacy gap? The answer to that is absolutely. Is the gap as large culturally as people think? I don't think it's as large culturally as people think. I think America has a financial literacy gap. Most people in America do not understand money and or how it works. So, sorry.
Hey, where'd you go?
So here I am. Do you see me? There we go. Call came in. Sorry. But I think most people in America just don't understand money. And America is designed to take advantage of people who don't understand finance and don't understand money. So what is financial literacy? Financial literacy is educating yourself on the one thing that you work most of your life to get, which is money.
Okay. So
And, well,
I will
Go ahead, Francesca.
Okay, I just wanted to add, you're right, Graylin. Financial literacy is really having knowledge about money, about the money that you use all the time, and know so you can make informed decision about your money. You know what I mean? So if you have a lot of money, you don't know how to manage it, that means you're financially illiterate. You see what I mean? So money, they always said it's a good master and also a bad servant. All that is included into it. And there is a huge gap. I can tell you that because I teach financial literacy. I've been teaching financial literacy for like the past 15 years now, and there's a huge gap. So I'll let you go, Elise.
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys have said so far is correct, and the
Okay, so
Uh-oh.
Elise froze. Okay, well, here's whose responsibility, whose job it is to close this gap.
Well, I think it's the financial professionals' jobs. I think it's like the community leaders' jobs. Like, for example, when I was in banking, I mean, when I was a banker, I create my own presentation. You know why? Because when people used to come to the bank, they didn't want to open a checking account. And I'm like, what is the disconnect? They rather pay to cash the check, but they're scared to open a checking account. Then I realized, oh man, they don't understand how it works. They don't understand the system. So I had a role to play. So I create my own presentation, my own financial literacy workshop, and I went to churches, I went to the radio, I go back to my high school every year, and I go to different nonprofit and talk about it because people don't understand how a checking account works. That's how bad it was. That was about 12 years ago.
You know, actually I do remember having that conversation. Like around when I was doing one of my internship, my graduate internship, that was a conversation I had to had with a lot of our clientele that would come in, and one of the expenses was that they would cash their, like, he comes in like, yeah, I work and I get two, they're working two jobs, which means they get two checks. And then, but it was okay because they were only taking $4 from each check. And then I had to sit with this guy and go through, okay, so they take $4 from this check, they take $4 from that check, and you do that twice a month. And then going through, okay, this is what happens if you put that money in an account. This is how much money you save. And it was, I was not aware that it was that bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it is that bad.
I see it in my business during tax time. It's ridiculous. I had a client this year that his tax refund, I want to say his refund was about $7,000 or so. Went to a check cashing place to cash it. And fortunately, he called me from, charged him almost $600 to cash it. And he was going to pay it. And the irony of it is that my office is in a Wells Fargo building. So Wells Fargo's in the first floor. So my checks are drawn on Wells. So even if he did not open an account with them, they would have charged him $5 to $10 to cash it. Now, I will say this though, you know, I to a point I agree with Fran in that there is there's enough blames to go around, but people have to start to take financial accountability, right? So when we start talking about the most vulnerable in our community, right, people that are indigent, that, you know, are from an indigent background, sure, we have to give them the information because they don't even know to look for it. However, I had another client who makes $90,000, got her refund for $10,000, went to Wells Fargo and cashed it. And they had to give her money in a brown paper bag as she walked out with this big stack of, you know, $100 bills in her hand. So I think the person with the accountability portion of it has an extraordinarily unsafe, right? But more than that, what are you doing with that much cash? Right? What do you need to do, right? So I
You
think that
said
we
it
have
was
to take a look at
$10,000
this.
or more than $10,000?
It was a little over $10,000. I
A
think it
little
might
bit
have been just
over?
under. It was a little
Okay.
bit. I know that they pulled her aside
What
and
she
did it
doesn't
to her and wrapped it up in the
understand
bag.
is if it's right under $10,000, if it's right over, if it's like a penny over $10,000, they'll do a currency transaction report and report it, to the government. And then
Correct.
if they see that you're structuring, if it's like a little bit under 10,000, they're gonna do what you call a suspicious activity report on you.
Correct.
So, and then getting that much cash at a bank is really unsafe. Okay, people are waiting outside the bank to rob you. So,
Right. 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 But furthermore than even the robbing aspect of it is the fact that you make this much money, but you're still, you're taking this cash because who knows why she did it, right? It doesn't make sense. So I feel a lot of people that are too unbanked and underbanked. Um, it is a serious problem, but people have to step up and say it's time for me to learn better. Lastly,
What?
one of the things I say to my clients is you spend all your time in a day, at least 40 hours a week, making money, and then you don't spend any time educating yourself on how to keep it or how to use it as a tool.
But here's my concern, though. One thing I've realized that is that sometimes people get to that point of figuring out, okay, I get that kind of a job, or I start a business, and they end up making money, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't get that education. So it's one thing for us to sit here and say, yeah, they should educate themselves. They should get to know things. Which high school? Wait, what? So Danley says the great state of New York says hello. Then Max says, which high school?
which high school I went to?
No, Mac is
Oh,
having a conversation, a normal Mac conversation that we're gonna catch on to later.
okay.
He's always so hey, hi, great state of New York. Although y'all know the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now because I forgot I lived in Florida. Um, but so people, it's one thing to say people should know, but they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So when people don't know, how do we get that information? How do we get them that knowledge? Because it doesn't matter how much information is out there. If people don't know that it's out there, it's irrelevant. So how do we get it out there?
First off, I apologize for my technical difficulties. I'm not really sure what happened there, but that was not expected. But to answer your question, to your point, there is a wealth of information out there. There are resources like the three people that are on this panel that we do financial literacy all the time. And in most of our everyday life, most of the time our business, we're always educating folks on things. But and I hate to sound cliches, but it starts with the individual. It starts with that understanding that you don't know everything and you need to seek out that information. And then once you do that, you will then learn, and then you will find more interesting ways to understand. Because before I got cut off, one of the things about money is that we're not all talking the same language. That's our biggest problem. The whole gap thing is there's a wealth of other ways of not only making money but preserving money that our community just does not know. All we know
Bridge
is get up,
burden.
go to work, save, put in money in a bank, and maybe you can buy a piece of land or buy a few properties. And some of us have been savvy enough to go into the stock market and say, "Hey, I'll invest some money in the stock market." But that's where our knowledge stops, and not realizing there is still lots to learn, and also just a whole other language in terms of money that we're not having. And most of the time it has to do with the fact that that type of discussion, we're talking about larger sums that people are willing to stomach to be able to say, hey,
Mhm.
we're not just talking about putting $300-400 away, which is great. But if you were really wanting to talk about some serious long-term wealth, it's going to take a more serious investment. And so understanding that and learning, hey, how can I be a part of that? It starts with the individual wanting to seek that out, and then once you do that, yeah, the resources are available all over.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. They don't know that it's a I can't seek what I don't know exists. A lot of us don't do, I mean, for me, what I see is that a lot of us grew up in that environment of lack where, you know, there's never enough money, there's never gonna be enough money. I have to have, you gotta, you know, grow up and get 10 jobs because there's not enough money. And then we start making money. But some of
Judy,
us are fortunate enough to get to a point where we meet people who educate us. But what
right.
about the ones who don't get there? So how do we bring the information to them?
Okay. I understand what you're saying, but I also agree with Elise because these people have to hold themselves accountable also. Because I will go and do a presentation, right? I'll have a budget. Okay, my class is on basics of budgeting, right? And then I bring a budget sheet. You know, the class, some of them are interactive, some of participating. You know, the sheet that I bought, I found like maybe if the class have like 20 people, I found maybe half of it on the floor after class or on the chair or whatever on the table.
But
Because
that's okay
no, no,
though.
no, 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 because you're not holding yourself accountable. Here I am bringing this information to you, but you're not valuing the information at all. You see what I mean? But there's no such thing about like how do we? I mean, people that don't know. Yes, I understand people don't know the information, but people that want to learn, they go and look for the resources. They ask somebody. You know, there are some customers I stay with for like 2 hours trying to build their credit so they could avoid paying for credit repair services. But you know what? In that 2 hours, in 6 months, they go about 100 points because they listen to they listen to my advice. But they ask, you in order to get help, you have to be one. I mean, in order to help yourself, you have to want the help. So some people are not open to it.
I agree. You know, I get a chance to deal with hundreds of people and in a year, and I give them the largest check that they get all year. It comes from
Yeah.
my office, and I treat my clients a little bit different. There's a client I have who she was filing her, baby's father was filing. He got his check. She was still waiting on her. She's talking about how she spent it already. She had it for a week. $7,000. She spent it. All right. And so I sat her down. I said, "Aren't you tired? Aren't you tired of doing the same thing all the time?" Right? Then the tears started streaming out of her face because she's tired. I agree that it's hard to go and get this information. It's easy to find, but it's hard to admit that you have the problem with it, and to find the resources that are not trying to remove the money from you as you're trying to learn how to save it. However, we have these two wonderful new creations: the library and bookstores. And you can walk into either one of these new places, and there's entire sections on this, written from PhD level to remedial level to children's level. You need financial literacy if you're always broke. You know it, period. Right? I know I need to lose weight if I'm overweight. If I'm fat, I know I need to lose weight. Right? I may not know how, but I know I can find information on losing weight. So the people have to step up because, Julie, as you know, we met with me running an auxiliary of a nonprofit. We talked about it. I brought in banks. I brought in people, right? But people have to avail themselves of it. And I think there is a psychology that needs to be addressed that does not get addressed, which is what you mentioned earlier, which is people come from a position of lack when it comes from money. If they change that notion from if there's not enough to there is plenty, it changes their entire mindset and allows them to go after things and get more of what they're really looking for. But they first have to change with changing their mind and stop thinking that everything is about being broke.
But see, for me, I'm thinking. Go ahead.
What I'll add to that to answer your question specifically, it's hard to answer your question specifically because the one thing that we all in here know that I think many people lose sight of, there's no get rich quick scheme. That idea, that whole thing about building wealth and you want to do it the quick and fast way. Yes, can you double your money in real estate? Of course you can, but that's not always the norm. And it's understanding what you're getting into. This mindset that we have as a society now, where we want everything right now, and we want that immediate return. Some of the things that we're teaching, or that will get you the tried and true wealth that you're so wanting and deserve, takes discipline and time. That's the key thing about money. It takes time, and if you want to grow it, you want it to expand it. It's not something that you can just do overnight, and it's going to be something that needs to be consistent and repetitive. And whenever you try to talk to people about that, that's where we lose them, because they're wanting, and especially those of you guys that do credit scores. You had a 400 credit score, and you're ready to buy that house, and you're thinking that, oh, in 20 days they can get me up to 600. No, it doesn't happen that way. And so getting folks to understand that it's a discipline, it's a self accountability thing, but also understand that you need a timeline, and we can help you, give you quick tools to help you, maybe save a few bucks here and there. But if you really are trying to get to that independence, understand that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be on that one business idea that's going to make you give your 10,000 and you make $1 million or something like. No, it doesn't happen like that. It's not for everybody. We hear the stories and they're great, but for the vast majority of the people that are building their wealth, it's through generations. It takes a couple of generations to get there.
Well, I agree. Okay, so let me see. And Dan Lee, I guess, is from that same space where I am of how do people find stuff, seek it when they don't know it's there. What Milad mentioned that we want, I guess she was agreeing with you, we want that instant gratification, and it's sometimes unrealistic. I agree. Now, here's the thing. You guys are talking about, okay, this is, people are not doing what they're supposed to do. Actually, earlier, friend, one thing I meant to say is that if you go and you do a financial literacy presentation and 10 people leave the paper, that's actually a success. That's a great success. If 10 people leave,
not on my book, not on my book. No, not now.
No,
that is not a success.
And
that's unacceptable.
No,
Julie,
that is a success.
That's unacceptable.
See, here's the thing. I think that's where we're going wrong, is that people start expecting that, hey, okay, I'm giving this information and they all need to get it. But it's not something it's not some, Mila's laughing, I don't know. It's not something you just go today and you tell them about it and suddenly they get it. So I feel that it's something that we as a community, we as a people need to work on. But to me, it's something that we need to be doing from the beginning.
So, I mean, well, here's one thing I will say. If anybody needs, at the minimum, you need to sit down with someone. I mean, there's not a shortage of financial services or financial planners in your network. I mean, in your orbit that you can actually sit down with and they can help you. Now, granted, hey, we're not all cut from the same cloth. There are some folks that, they're just looking to put you in something to just make a quick buck off of you. And there is that also that stigma of lack of trust in our community, which is, I mean, if we really want to talk about this and get in the weed of things, this is like systemic and been perpetuated for generations. The mindset of our people in terms of how we look at money and also how we trust other people with our money is you know, it's so rooted in a lot of soul and mistrust and just bad things that from the onset, we're having to build that relationship before we even get to the point where you're going to even listen to what I have to say. And then from there, go ahead.
You guys keep focusing on what people are not doing once they are adults. My concern, my issue is, I need to figure out how do we reach people before they get to the point of being that adult.
Okay.
Who's not, because if my thing is, and one of the things I always talk about how we have that whole that struggle mentality. So if that's where someone is, then yeah, you could do a presentation. It may take 5, it may take 6, it may take like 10 meetings
Right.
before someone does it. So how do we start that? How do we bring people to where they actually are when they start building the knowledge, or so that they start developing that curiosity? It's not going to happen from like you have a meeting with people or nobody's coming.
Right.
Right. But let me tell you, that's why I decided to go to high schools to talk to the juniors and the seniors, because I was fortunate enough to start in banking when I was 16. Okay. So I was fortunate enough to know about budgeting, money, whatever, at a very early age. Because I was fortunate, I felt like it's my duty to give back, to inform these students, you know, about credit, about budgeting, about checking account, how to manage the money and all of that. So this is how I think that we should start. We should start with the young people also. And then the young people can also teach their parents. You'll be surprised. They can also teach their parents if we don't reach to their parents and stuff. But when I have to say, when I go to the high schools, I am way more encouraged than if I teach an older class, because they are so eager to learn and to work their money. My niece, I taught her about, I taught her how to budget her money. This girl at 18 years old, she saved by the time she was 20, she was able to save $12,000 to buy a car cash. We were in a dealership, buy a car cash. You know, I mean, she could have take it or leave it, but she took it and she used everything I told her. You know what I mean? It was up to her to use it. So I'm really encouraged by these stories, because she's gonna do better than her mom. You know, she's doing better than her mom money-wise. Her credit score is 780. So I think starting with young people is one way that we can help, the next generation manage their money better.
I believe in teaching younger education, younger children. I push back a little bit, because one of the things I tell my clients when they come in, they don't know things. I tell them, it's not your fault you don't know this. It's your mama's fault. And it's not your mama's fault. It's your mama's fault. And it's not your mama's fault. It's her mama's fault, right? The point is, like Elise said, this is a generational thing. But at some point, it has to stop. I also think that we also have a cultural issue, because we go to people. I own my own business, so I say things, you're gonna get it raw from me, right? We go to people that have generationally and systemically enslaved us. And we go to them looking for them to provide information on our freedom. So in my business, I tell my clients, I tell my employees, the benefit we have in our marketplace is that we go to people and we speak their language, right? I don't mean their language from French or Spanish and English. I mean speak their cultural language. Tell it to me how you feel it. right? I'm scared, Gray. I got it. Because you walk into B of A and there's a white guy in a navy suit, a white shirt, and red tie sitting behind a mahogany desk telling you what you can, you cannot do, right? He doesn't even understand your issue. So what we have to start to do is it is incumbent upon us as the financial professionals to go and put this information out there, but it's also on their responsibility to decide they need the help. And sometimes in my business, my clients come in, you screwing up, I'm going to cut you first. You got to hurt first. I'm going to make you sick before I make you well. Let me tell you how dumb this is. I tell people all the time, the number one, there's two things that stop people from doing mortgages in my business more than anything else. Student loans now, that just started a couple of years ago. But the number one thing are vehicles. People will come in my office driving a brand new Escalade, paying $1,000 a month on it, live in an apartment that's $700 a month. Why? It's because we have been taught to value things differently. And we have been taught to keep an oppressive system going. We are the engine for an oppressive system. But we go to that same oppressed system for answers.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say, and to go back to your original point in terms of teaching young, the system is set up for you to be in debt and to then spend the next 30, 40 years to work off the debt that you amass. And it starts for many of us, like Graylin said, the minute we step foot and we turn 18 and you walk on a college campus and somebody's throwing a credit card application in your face. And that's where it begins.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just perpetuates and perpetuates. And then, you wanting to get that new car or get keeping up with the Joneses. And so before you know it, you blink, you get out of college, you get your first job, you're already $50,000-$60,000, if not more, in debt, and you're not even making that on an annual salary.
Exactly.
And so then it just perpetuates. So we definitely need to reprogram the minds of our youth to understand what credit means and how they can use it in their favor, but also understanding that it's okay that you don't have the latest and greatest new thing. It's not important.
Live within your
depreciating
means.
assets that don't mean a thing. Again,
I think
it's about teaching them and understanding that. You do have some that are kind of getting it. Like I love the fact that many people are now encouraging their kids to start their own business, or they have an idea, they force them to do that. But it takes more than that. And going back to Graylin's point, it did start with the parents. I mean, one thing I will push back on what you said, Graylin. For most, if not, I don't know about our parents, but definitely our grandparents, they did leave something for their kids. Mm-hmm. It's just that for whatever reason, what got lost in translation, or they didn't understand the value of what their grandparents left. That generation just walked away from it as if like, okay, well, it's not mine, I don't care for it. Not realizing that they were standing on a gold mine, whether it was that 2 or 3 acre land that granddaddy, busted his butt for, and he worked. And then when the kids got it, they all just saw the profits and they sold it off and to somebody who developed multi-million-dollar properties on that, just because of the lack of understanding of what, land, the value of land, what it means to own your own. And that's what we have to kind of get back and reprogram the youth on.
For me, one of the issues I find, I often describe, again, coming from social services, everything goes back there. I often look at it more like if you've ever seen an abused child or a child who was deprived, where a neglected child who didn't have food for a couple of days. You come in and you put a plate of food in front of that child. Actually, I had that experience. Like I was with a kid, literally, where I think it was like there were snacks in their bag. We were out and there were snacks in their bag and there was the water. this kid, the water is theirs. They had their water. I had my water. But it was, you could tell he was done because he was, but he would not let that go. It was like, he just had to finish it because, hey, if I stop drinking, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
And I often see the spending pattern of many people in our community like that. It's like, hey, I haven't had money, so I finally got a little come up. So let me do this. Let me use it up. I feel like
Right.
a lot of times it's almost like people are scared to not use the money they have. And the other thing the other issue that I have is that whole bill of iconography, where that's my word, where
I was gonna say.
I was like, what is that?
iconography is one of the things that I feel is keeping us down, because it's that whole idea of showing people what you can do. Because when I walk in and I walk into Macy's and I buy that, and I saw that because I worked at the purse counter at Macy's, people would come in and try to buy a Dooney bag, but need to put it on 2 or 3 different cards because they want people to see that they can. What?
You can do that?
They can try. Or, and one thing you can do, you could put some on your Macy's and some on something else. And or you could put Macy's cash, and or it used to be.
All right. Can I chime in real quick? Are you
Good.
done? I'm sorry. I've been like I've been hungry to say something.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So to go back to what Elise was saying, and I'll come back to your point, Dr. Judy. Elise, I think one of the main problem we have in our community is people not living within their means. It is it's detrimental. People do not live within their means. That's why they always think the bank is stealing their money. They always think it's the mortgage broker fault for putting them in a house of for $500,000, $300,000 when they are just like cleaning kitchens and everything. During the market crash, I witnessed it all. But you can't blame these people. You are trying to keep up with other people because you're trying to show off that you can, but you can't sleep at night because you cannot make the bills. People don't know how, and it's not only in our community, it's everywhere. I see it at the bank. I see it it's like, oh my God, live within your means. I'll tell you the story. Hold on, Miss.
But here, see, you guys.
But I was gonna get to your point. I was gonna get to
go ahead, get to my point.
To your word here. But yeah, so living within your means is really something. I'll tell you a story. My husband always want to buy me Michael Kors, Coach, whatever. And because I'm like, dude, I don't want that. I can buy like 3 purses with that money. Like, for what? I'm not a brand name person. I mean, I'm frugal. Like, I'm a banker, so I'm frugal. And he's like, what kind of woman are you? I'm not high maintenance. And then we're gonna have money for retirement. You see what I mean? So my best friend has a coach. I don't need a coach because I have other things that are more important than the coach. So people don't realize that a car depreciates in value. You don't need a Cadillac. You need a freaking house. Okay, that's gonna build a value. But
here, the thing is, though, that's not, our society is not, we are having this conversation. We know this, but our society is not selling. That's not the picture that our society is selling. Our society is selling that you need to have the latest, the greatest. So how do we as a people counter that? Because holiday season is
what we have, by knowing what we can afford, by knowing what we have. I don't think it's that hard. Like somebody was saying, like doing tax return, the biggest was it you, Graylin? That the biggest check that they get You know what they do with that check? Like you were saying, like a kid that don't have money, when that get that biggest check, it's done in a month, right?
But
It's
I
done in a
know this.
month.
I
but
know we already know this. My issue is how do we change from that generational poverty mentality so that we can turn into, because you're saying
So,
people should know, people should know. Obviously, people don't know.
don't
How
know,
do
right?
we teach?
Well, I've
I
been
think
teaching. We've been teaching. I mean, I think all of us here
I,
been
I,
teaching.
Not
I think, Julie, I think your iconography point is a very
What's
good
that word mean anyway? Oh, show off? Okay.
one.
Got it.
I'm putting words together, but I know what icon is, and I know ography. So I think the problem is this goes back to what Alicia and I were both saying, is that one of the things we have to do when I teach my budgeting, I teach budgeting a little bit different than other people, right? Because I teach budgeting from the standpoint of, yes, we got to pay our bills, but I really focus on the money they have left over to spend and enjoy, right? Because when people say, if I tell you to save money, right, for the sake of having it, right, put this money away for retirement. I'm 35 years old, let's say, 25 years old. Retirement ain't sexy to me, period. It ain't sexy. So when you ask them to do it, you're asking them to do something that they're not motivated to do. So the way I teach my people is I teach them first to find something that they are going to enjoy. I don't care if it's frivolous, right? I want to save for this Coach bag, right? This Michael Kors bag. Great. Let's talk about how you do it. Let's instill the concept of saving first. Once I can instill that concept of saving in you, over time you get used to the pattern, the habit of it, and now I can take that and put it into other things that are there. See, I agree with you that you watch TV. I live in Houston. Our big mall here, the Galleria Mall, the Gucci store and the Louis Vuitton store always have a line. Always have a line. Not just COVID, prior to that. And I went in there one time, I was like, wait a minute, you told me people are paying $300 for a t-shirt? Right? Lady's like, yeah. I'm like, this is the real price? I personally could not believe it. Right? But for them, the problem is that they see success as the things that they have. Alicia says earlier, like, oh, our grandparents, they left that stuff. I didn't say, and I understand his point, and I agree with him. What I was saying before was not that they didn't do it, they didn't teach it. They didn't teach it. They taught us. I have struggled in the field. I have struggled with my back. You struggle with your mind. Go to school, right? Get a job and stay at that job. The goalpost has moved. You're not getting with a company at 20 years old and staying there until you retire any longer. The goalpost has moved. The problem is that in our community, we have not moved our goalposts along with it and say, this is what success really looks like. So we have allowed the media to tell us what success looks like. And the media says, be a rapper, right? Be a baller, right? So if I go somewhere with someone, I pull out $500 right now and I spend it, they go, what? Oh, you a baller, right? So that's what we have now taught each other is that you have to be the living embodiment of your money. That's what's cool, not other things, right? The conversation has to change. I'm gonna say this and I'll stop. I'll go. Right. Greatest hip hop song in my opinion is OJ. Is the story of OJ by Jay-Z. He's teaching financial literacy there. He literally says, "I'm trying to give you $1 million worth of games for $9.99." Right. He's teaching it, but that song goes off, and then someone talks about their Bentley every song after that is talking about their Bentley. The problem is that we have to change the conversation on what success looks like. Until we begin to change that conversation, we will have people continue to wear their money on their back.
How do we change the conversation? I agree with you 100%.
By having it.
Where?
By having it.
Where?
Well,
everywhere.
I was going to chime in. One of the things that it's been clearly abundant, and it continues to be abundant, is that we as, whether we call it parents or whatever, we just assume that these things are going to be taught in the education system. Like your child is going to school, they're going to graduate, and they're going to have all this not transferable knowledge, and they're going to know about that to be not only a model citizen but also responsible. Not realizing that education, number one, starts in the home, and also understanding that, you know, as it relates to our people, we're not, they're not only, they're not getting the historical education, but they're not even getting the financial education, because at the end of the day, much to Graylin's point, most of the Blacks that are revered are the entertainers, right? And so that is basically the challenge that we're dealing with right now, that we have to fix, because until we kind of get this thing under control, until we utilize other methods of educating our youth, I'm a big proponent of, you know, meeting the people where they are. And I think there's a lot of folks every Sunday or every Saturday they go to places of worship. Those are perfect places to get started. And I know some of the local clergy, they do encourage, or they try to bring their folks in to educate their congregations. But we kind of need to do it, ratchet up a little bit, because
I've been
right
to
now,
many
I mean, we're losing
churches.
that battle.
Yeah, I commend those pastors and those clergies and those pair, because you know, when I go in to go, you know, to teach financial literacy, they accept me with like open hands, and I commend that. I go to their women's group, their men's group, and their the youth. So the church is a good place to start. I totally agree, Elise. But to your point, Gwaylin, I'm having a hard time with, you were saying, like, it's a good thing that you're doing. Like, okay, if they want to save for a Coach bag, you know, they see, you know, that's success to them, like to save for that Coach bag, you know. But for me, I have a hard time to say that to somebody. I would have to explain to them that, look, I know you want to save for a Coach bag, but I want to know why, and then the value and all that stuff. I mean, I would not encourage somebody to. I see what you're trying to do, and I think it's great, but I would not encourage somebody to save for a Coach bag.
Francisca,
I
I
think-
mean, I hear what you're saying, but sometimes you kind of have to
Because even when they're at.
meet them
I
where they
guess.
are.
I guess.
See,
And
I think
you
that's
got to
the-
give them a little nuggets to kind of reel them in.
I guess that's
I
true.
think that's the issue that I think that's the issue that you're facing, Fran, is that you
Yeah.
have this idealistic idea that
But what they should be doing and why.
Yeah.
exactly, but
I
that's not
guess.
where they are, and what we need to be working on is to get them where they need to be, not necessarily where they should be.
So
So-
Just to speak to that a little bit too.
Okay.
I mean, it can be frustrating for professionals like us. I mean, we're
Yeah.
not akin to it. I mean, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
and I will be honest, since we're having open, honest conversations, it's hard to service your own people when you can't even get them to understand basic knowledge. And so, you know, folks that I'm sure the folks of us that are in here, we have a passion for our people. That's why we still do it. But we know that if we go on the other side, we can have it's going to take a lot less of a conversation, and then we're talking about a lot more money. So my bottom line makes sense for me to go over there if I'm just worried about that. But if we're looking to do more and really impact our people, we know it's a slow burn. It's a struggle. You're having to knock people upside their head a couple of times. And for what? Because you're probably not even going to get much gain out of it, other than you're hopefully making a difference.
One of the things I often say is that we have to have some things that we do for money, and we have some things that we do because that's what's in our heart, or that's what fulfills us in other ways. But hold on a second. Let me just say hi. Oh, Didi is here. That's my brother. My sister gets on me for acknowledging, but yeah, that's my brother, and he's here. Oh, Danley's my sister too. I didn't mention that. That's my
Oh, hi,
sister.
Carl. Carl is here. Hi,
Carl,
Carl
yes,
Brothers. I
Carl.
haven't seen her in a
This
long
is
time.
this is the first time Carl came or
Oh.
Carl commented because he's been watching. This is the first time
Oh,
he said
okay.
anything. So hi, Carl. One of the things that DJ mentioned is that we need to be people. We need to do it to, I guess, teach by example. And he was saying how kids don't want to be talked to, especially by some people who don't have it together. But the reality of it is, a lot of people in our community don't have it together, but somehow we
Right.
need to have, we can't keep passing on that generational that generational debt or that generational poverty mentality. So we need to.
And for the kids, they don't know what success looks like. My son's
They
best friend
don't. Really.
swears to him that I'm a I make millions every year. Because I have
Well,
a
you
nice
do,
house and
don't
a nice car. Right? It doesn't take that much. Listen, I'm independently rich. Okay, let's
I've been different. Whatever that means.
Great. I'm up for adoption.
I'm taking it. That's funny. I'm adopting. I think.
Or put me on your wheel since
think-
we're talking about generational wealth.
Right. So that's one of the things.
Okay, let's switch.
I agree that certain things have to be there, right? But the conversation, sometimes our conversation can be too high level, right?
Mhm.
In the sense that we're talking about wealth building. We're talking about wealth building to people who sometimes don't have a bank account. So you have to stop saying, listen, generational wealth means something for your kids. They ain't left nothing for themselves.
Exactly.
Right? So when you look, so when I say, Fran, I'm teaching them to save for the bag, I'm not saying, or the purse, right? I'm not saying, hey, I think the purse is a good purchase. I'm saying, before I get you to do something for your health. So let's go back to my analogy of being overweight, right? You need to lose weight so that you're healthy, right? But let me teach you first how to lose weight because you're going to Hawaii and you want to put on a swimsuit.
Right.
Once I teach you the fundamental principles that go into being healthy and losing the weight, and you start losing, I can build upon that success.
Mm-hmm.
And then teach you, okay, now let's do things that are long-term successful.
I understand.
I think to Elise's point earlier, and I know I'm getting your name wrong. Every time I say it, I think of how to say it. I'll be like, that's wrong, but I say it anyway. There is a need for people to learn, and it is frustrating for the teachers, right? It's frustrating for us sometimes. However, to Julie, to your point earlier, like there's 10 people think your budgeting thing, that's a success. Look, you don't have to change the world. You have to change one person and you can change their world. So as a teacher of this stuff, you can't look and say if 100% of my students aren't successful, I fail. If one of your students succeeds, they now can pour that into someone else. And it grows and it grows and it grows. And before you know it, there's a community of people that go, hey, I listened to Graylin. And because I listened to him, everything in my life changed. Like, when did you meet him? Oh, I've never met him. Right? So I think that there is a need for us sometimes to put our pride and our ego aside as the teachers, as the keepers of the keys, to just give people, look, get one basic.
Get to
one
there,
basic.
yes.
Right? And then I can build upon that basic. Right? Otherwise, we have a community full of unhealthy people, and we say, you're unhealthy because of you. All you got to do is walk. Right? And they're like, I thought I had to walk, change my eating, become a vegan, take these pills and blah, blah. I can't do all those things. I'm going to do none of them.
So
And we have to
do
start
it by
telling people
tier.
it's okay to do one. Do one. Just tomorrow, park at the back of the parking lot and walk to the door.
Oh,
Does it make sense? And it's the same thing with money. But we don't do it with money because as teachers, I think we want the instant gratification of seeing them come back next week and say, I changed everything.
that's true.
Does it make sense?
I totally agree, and thank you for explaining.
Hold on. Give me 1 second. Hi, Masai. Because last time Masai said hi, and I took too long to. Masai had his mom type hi, and I took too long to respond. And then he said, she didn't say hi to Trevor. So Hi, Oren. Hi, Trevor. Hey, he noticed. Hi, Imani. Okay, sorry. Hey, I'm not having Messiah all upset.
So I can go now? Hi,
Yeah.
Messiah. Okay. So, Graylin, thank you so much for that explanation of the coach bag scenario. I get it. And I guess I'm very, not I guess, but as you all can see, I'm very passionate about teaching people, about having my people do better, about, getting their credit up and all that stuff. And right now I work at a bank where there's not that much, over here in this, because we're from the middle Cincinnati. So in the east coast of Florida, there's that many of that bank. So all I see is, I don't see a lot of people that look like me. So that kept me sad because when I was at, the other banks, I used to have a lot of, Haitian customers and then, Black American, all the people that look at me that I can make a difference in their life. Because the people I have right now, I mean, they don't need any teaching. They got all that money. But anyway, I work in Boca, so I don't have to tell you anything else. But I think Graylin, what you said is very true. Doing it in sincere. Once they see that they get successful with that one thing, that's gonna motivate them to do, to go to the next level. With that being said, I remember I did a girls to women. I did their financial literacy workshop for last year, and I went to five school that day. And I remember I brought one of the bankers with me, one of the tellers with me, because I wanted to have somebody, because I had to bail grade and all this stuff. Long story short, on the first class, after the first class, my coworker pulled me over, my teller pulled me over. He's like, friend, she's Black, so she's Jamaican. He's like, friend, you got to talk like this. You got to come to this level. All these little things you're doing, all these little, like, I mean, I understand it, but you got to talk like them. You got to like give example that relate to them. Like, I can see their faces and I can see you, and I know you're very interactive when you're teaching. So this is not going on. So I had to switch it, and I had to use some slang sometime, and I sound horrible with the slang and the accent. But I got through all of them. But what she said was true, because I had to come to their level. So it's not gonna happen in a heartbeat. But all I can say, I'm doing my part to which, the people that needs help. And I know Graylin and Elise is doing their part. Miss Cinea, it's not gonna take, it's gonna take a long time, because not a lot of people
Let me ask this
that are
question.
professionals that want to give back to the community like us.
So whose responsibility is this?
It's
To
my
what?
responsibility, but other people may not think it's their responsibility.
Like I'm not talking about for changing the whole community, societal, generational mentality. Whose responsibility is this? Like, who should be taking charge of this? Like, who should we be? Like, I know, how Ice Cube had his CWBA. Like, who needs to be taking?
Maybe
Who needs to
our
be? Who should be putting
elected
a plan?
officials. Maybe our elected officials. I don't know.
Wait, okay, no, we're not even gonna go there, because people have
Okay.
this thing of thinking elected officials are leaders. Elected officials are elected servants, not elected leaders. Who should be leading? Who should be taking the lead? It's not on one. Okay, DJ says it's not on one person.
It isn't.
No, I don't think it's one
That's what
person.
I was
don't think
gonna
it's one
say.
group.
Paul says everyone.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on one person or one group.
Yeah.
Right?
It's not.
It is, because like you say, oh, it's the financial services people. This is a job. This is a job. Right? That's not who Elise is. It's a job. Right? It's Frank's
He
job.
went his
So
title.
to tell her that she has to save the community when she's just trying to make money, that's unfair.
I
What
didn't say.
It's up to each one of us, right?
Yes.
I agree that starts in the household, right? Start in the household. Mom and dad have to educate themselves and begin to pass it down. Teachers need to educate themselves and add to their classroom curriculum. Churches need to step up and say and realize I'm taking money out the hood. Let me teach the hood how to keep money, right? You know, police officers need to stop saying I'm just going to arrest people and say, hey, I got a better idea for you, right? Store owners need to say, hey, come in here and work in my store. Let me show you, right? It has to be a community mindset. That's why I always say you got to change the world of one person. Change the world of one person. Because if we look, here's the reality.
We can't change everyone.
Money corrupts our community all the time. Remember back in the day, Al Sharpton used to be all about civil rights and black people's justice. Now his show is all about politics. It's called Politics Nation. Why? Because money came in and said, don't talk about that. Talk about this. And he said, okay, check big enough, right? So we cannot sit back and put the leaders in a certain place and say that's where they have to stay. Lead your house. Lead your community. Lead by example. Stop looking and saying it's somebody else's job. In my organization, you come in here, my job is to do your taxes. But if you're screwing up, I'm going to say, look, give me your butt. Let's talk about your money. Because you coming in here, I gave you walked out here with a cash advance of $6,000 2 weeks ago. And you told me it's gone? How? Mr. Grayland, no. I don't know why, but they say no all the time. No, Mr. Grayland, right? No, let's stop. That way you can never say no one told you, because I did. Now, if you don't do better, that's on you, right? So it's plant the seed and let the seed grow. And I don't think it's fair for us because, like Fran said, my office is in Boca. I do taxes for people in Boca. I do taxes for people in Houston and live in the equivalent of Boca. They don't know either. They just have a higher income that insulates them from a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Yeah. They're not getting their lights turned off because they make $150,000, but they still broke. They still got $10,000 in the bank, but they make $150,000.
Okay,
well, you know who's the worst at managing their money? Doctors.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, so and Dizia was saying, yeah, and I guess agreeing with you guys that it's the community's responsibility. And what he says is, I think that that mentality is changing, and for some, and especially in the coming generations, I see a slight shift, but not enough of a shift because he also says it definitely needs to be added to the classroom curriculum, but we need to.
That ain't gonna happen.
It can happen with a lot more civic engagement.
Well, I was thinking, what can they
it's not going to happen.
What can they teach these kids in high school in economics? Okay, I always go to the economic class,
they have economics classes.
Yeah.
It's just that it does not teach personal economics. It talks about it. Yeah, it talks about theoretical and sines and cosines and variance and stuff that does not apply in everyday life. But when I say with a lot more civic engagement, is what I mean is the fact that some schools do teach that kind of stuff.
No, what I was saying is why can't they teach? I was saying why can't they teach financial literacy in that economic class?
Well, because they don't have to.
They don't have to?
No.
And also
we're not making them.
Yeah, we're not making them, and that's not their mandate. Their mandate, schools now have strict curriculums and what they need to teach, so that way the kids can pass whatever standardized test. They need to pass in order for them to get the funding that they need for their school.
Because I remember I learned how to do taxes. I learned how to do my tax on my economics class because I don't know. So
I think it goes way deeper than that. I think it goes deeper than that because America's strength is just consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most.
I was gonna go to the next comment, which is what Dizia was saying, that we're taught to consume and not to accumulate as a whole.
Yes.
That's why we don't teach. That's why we don't teach finances in school. because a dumb consumer is a spending consumer. An
Yes.
educated consumer
And it's
realizes
good for
I
and it's
don't
good
have
for
to buy
somebody
this.
else's business. They may
Period.
not be good for themselves, but they're definitely good for the economy and other people's business, just not
You
themselves.
say that's why they don't teach that in school, Graylin?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Look,
Okay,
the
enlighten
three of
me.
us,
I don't get
I'm
it.
willing to bet. I'm willing to bet that of the three of us here right now, because we work in the financial industry, we are considered frugal people. We spend under our means. Why? Because we know better. But other people, they are taught to consume because they don't. I had a client come to me 2 years ago and sold me a Porsche. A Porsche. I paid cash for it. Why? It was $5,000. It was worth 10, but he was short money. So it was like, oh my God, Brady, you got a Porsche. I paid $5,000 for it. Right? I just sold it 2 days ago. I had it for 2 weeks. I sold it last week for $3,000. Right? So because I am in that industry, I know better. And because of that, I don't go out and buy a brand new car.
Okay, you still don't.
Because I know
I
it's a bad
still don't
deal.
get why school does not teach financial
Fran,
literacy.
because-
Why? I'm
Schools
still
and
not
Because school is
understanding.
funded by the
actually, you know
government.
what?
It's part of the what?
School is funded by the government. The
Oh,
government's job is to keep the economy going, right? The economy goes because private business makes money and hires.
wow.
So during COVID, since COVID has started, Amazon and all these other companies have boomed.
Mhm.
Apple still released this new phone in
I
the middle
know.
of COVID.
Hmm.
Why?
And people
Because
still buying
they
it.
said, you feel bad, go shop. You feel bad, go shop. Right? They tell you lies, and they tell us all lies, and we go by it. They tell you the best time for retail business is what? Christmas, right? It's not. The best time for retail is first quarter of the year. Why? Because tax refunds come out. The government gives out hundreds of billions of dollars in refunds, and nothing is on sale. Ever. Ever. The first sale you see at the beginning of the year is President's Day. And what do they sell on President's Day? Mattresses. That's it. That's
That's
it. So the
true.
government has a vested interest in the consumer continuing to buy because we don't export. No other nation buys from us. We're the third largest oil producer on the planet. We just don't export it.
See, I mean, thank you for this information because I would never think of it like that. You know, I mean, this is so. Oh my God,
That's why I'm here.
There you go.
For real.
So actually, great. DJ was saying the same thing in the chat. He says, "Look at the pandemic. We're told that we need to spend money big time to help the economy keep going. When was there ever a conversation about savings?" And Carl says, if we teach you all to be millionaires, who's going to take the jobs?
So listen, during the pandemic, what I did, I put together a presentation called "How to Manage Your Money During COVID," and it was strictly on COVID. And I taught that in a lot of at churches and in a lot of Facebook Live or forum and all that stuff. But one of the things that they said when I was doing my research, the stimulus check, it's good because people get to spend more.
Of course.
Like, it's supposed to pay their bills. No, that's why the economy going back because they're spending that $2,000.
They're literally telling people, if you want a job or to keep a job, spend money.
Yes.
You can't
No,
make money.
hold on.
Spend money.
Hold on. They didn't say spend money. They say spend money you ain't got.
Yeah.
Exactly. Spend all of it. Borrow it. Think about this.
And
We are right now have a negative interest rate from the Fed to the banks. We have a negative interest rate. Right? Why? Because they think that will stimulate the market because they'll give more money out. And therefore people will spend more money. The only reason why we are not over a cliff in a complete depression right now is because of fraud, because of SBA fraud, because people defraud the Small Business Administration, and they knew it was going to happen, but they allowed it to go because it allowed those people to get money and then spend it. And when the economy gets back on its feet, they will prosecute those people because we're back now.
Wow.
DJ also makes the point of Black Friday as of I guess when you were talking about the no sales in January, and they tell you Black Friday an opportunity. He says an opportunity for people to rack up credit card debt.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing.
You know, now I was gonna say, like when he was saying interest rate, our bank are very the bank I work at, they're very good on cash. They have a lot of cash with the Federal Reserve, so their rate is like 0.10 on money market, right? But we used to have really good rate, but right now we're very well capitalized or whatever. So I lost $1 million the other day. A customer called, he wanted to bring me $1 million, but I couldn't even do an exception because the rates are so low. $1 million. I desperately needed this revenue. You have no idea how my P&L went down during the pandemic. And I was one of the top branches. So, but I call my boss, he's like, friend, no, we're not doing that kind of stuff. We well capitalized and all that.
Okay, so let's talk about this. We've been talking about the spending habits.
Yes.
One of the things that I was looking up was that Black people, we make up 13.4% of the economy, of the population. Our spending is $1.4 trillion and 8.9%. Our share of the total buying power of this country is 8.9%. So with this much money, how do we start using this to get the stuff we need? Like, how do we start using this that more, like, for me, I always talk about your vote and your money being your act right sticks. How do we start using this act right stick? Because to me, $1.4 trillion is a lot of money to be putting back into an economy. But we're always we're spending this money, and then we're spending this money on companies that will do stuff and then will demand an apology. Like, don't get me started on the demanding of the apology. I'm gonna try to resist. So what do we need to do? How do we help people understand that, like, how big, like, that's not even a belt, that's like that strong rod kind of like act right stick. What do we need to be doing?
Well, here's the first thing. All right, there's a couple of things then, and we've had conversations about the buying power of our Black community for many years, right? And there's a lot of things that are said about the circulation of the Black money and how other races, their money gets circulated within the community. They're buying from their own people and stuff like that. And in some cases, it can go 6 weeks, whereas our community, it doesn't even last 6 hours, right? And so there has been a perpetual movement of buying Black, and all of that is great and needs to be happening. But what folks are still failing to realize is that while it's great to throw out those numbers, many people are spending money that they do not have. And we cannot keep asking people to, because it sounds great that, yes, you made this money. Yeah, you made this money, but instead of you paying down your current debt, you're telling me, okay, well, keep buying. Don't worry about your debt. Just keep buying so we can make it look like, okay, we have a thriving, vibrant economy. I would probably argue, and I think most of us here, we really don't have a $1 trillion buying power. We don't. I mean, when you look at the overall wealth of Blacks in this country, it's far less. It's far less than that collectively, and it keeps going down because we're not retaining, saving our money. it's like, yes, you're buying, but you're just buying more.
You're
more
spending
debt.
what you don't have.
You're spending what you don't have, and so these economic forecasts are saying all this great stuff, and but at the end of the day, that's the problem. We need to have a different conversation about what our buying power actually is, and what are we intentionally doing about it. Because there's a lot of conversation about, yes, we have this buying power, not enough conversation about how much of that money are you putting away, how much of that money are you investing
Right.
and letting it grow for you, versus, okay, yes, we have all this money, let's build up our community.
So, okay, maybe buying power is the wrong word. Or I guess maybe I should have said black spending, because regardless, people, my first choice would be, yes, that people are using this money to make it work for them. But if they are spending the money anyway, I think it's important that we start figuring out, okay, if we're spending, like, if we're buying from these people, whether or not we can afford it, whether or not we should be buying from these people, how do we like let that be like gain some power from that?
Well, I think I agree with you. I think buying power, but in this conversation is a misnomer in itself, right? Like, who cares what we can buy? We're talking about wealth building, right? So wealth building and buying are not the same. But I say to people, there are a few things. One, telling ourselves lies about ourselves, right? What I mean by that is, it is a common thing that for Black people to complain about Black business. The moment they get a bad customer service experience at a Black place, they always get the same thing you go to Black folks. As if somehow white people have never experienced poor customer service, right? As if white people have never had to have problems that had to be sorted out in court, right? I am a Black accountant. I can promise you, there are very few places in this country where some guy is going to roll over to his wife in the morning and say, "Hey, babe, you know what we need to find? A Black guy to do our accounting." Black people support Black people. It's a lie that we do not, right? I am in business because of Black people. Now, that being said, the other issue we have to do is I think we have to make some things attractive again, right? So if we go back to Elise's analogy about the grandparents leaving things to their kids but nothing else, those grandparents told their kids, if you want to be a success in this world, to do what? Go to school and get an education.
Yeah.
And then come out in education and get a good job. I have always said, we will do better as a people when we begin to tell our kids to stop going to school and get a good job, and start telling our kids to go to school to create good jobs.
Correct.
So we have to start changing our conversation as a whole. Who cares if we have $1.4 trillion of spending or $1.5 billion in spending? What are you spending it on is the key. Listen, if someone comes into my office and they work at Walmart and they've got 3 children, they're going to get a tax return of $9,000 to $10,000. All right? If you take 10 of those women and they invest half of that refund, they can start a beauty supply store. They can start beauty supply, and they'll come to me and go, yeah, but the Asian people had that supply chain on lock, right? So no problem. Go hire an Asian person to be the front person for your business and do your buying. That's simple. They use us as tokens all the time. And now you can grow in your community. The conversation isn't had, though. The conversation isn't had because we're focused on consumerism instead of growth. So we have to first start teaching people how to grow. Solve their immediate issues, right? Our hierarchy of needs. Let's solve their immediate issues, but then teach them growth. That's what we don't have in our community. We don't have conversations about growth. We have conversations about wealth. We have conversations about poverty. But we have a conversation about jobs and income, but we don't have a conversation about growth, right? My grandmother was a sharecropper, right? My grandmother, who's still alive, was a sharecropper in Arkansas, She taught what we would now call pre-K her whole life. My grandmother raised 9 children, 40 grandchildren off of working at daycare. How did she do it? She learned how to conserve, but she didn't learn how to grow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's a psychosis in our community that we have not addressed. And that's the problem. We need people like you, Dr. Julie, to start to address the psychosis that we have that prevents us from growing.
One, did Graylin just call me Julie?
She said Judy.
No, I said Dr. Judy.
Oh, okay. I get feelings.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay.
I know your name.
So one of the things DJ was saying, group economics, and he also said we need to learn how to not just invest in each other, but learn how to invest together, whether it be business, property, or and so forth. And I guess when we were talking about the when I think it was you, Elise, that was talking about the how long the dollar stays in our community. And Carl was saying how that we need to start by making it a point to buy in our own communities, which I absolutely agree with both of them.
I was gonna say
working our own communities too.
exactly.
Say that one more time.
Working in
I
our
said,
own
don't forget
community.
working in our own communities.
Yeah, that's what I'm missing right now, Graylin. I'm not working
Me
in my
too.
own community. So listen, when Graylin was saying that we talk about poverty, we talk about wealth, but we don't talk about growth. That is so true, because the buying power, what does it do? It creates credit card debt, which is the worst kind of debt you can have, right? So, do you know how long it takes to pay a credit card that's maxed out and you're trying to pay the minimum payment, or if you have like 5 credit card? So, you have all the buying power using your credit card, right? Spending money that you don't have. So, what does that do? We stay in poverty. So, there's no growth. But if you are making that money, like Graylin, my dad bought 13 of us here. He was working as a landscaper at a country club. 13 of us, not 13, well, 9 children, 3 grandchildren, and my mom. And then we didn't come in an apartment. We come in a nice house. He probably was making $6.50 20 years ago. So by the time he retired, he was making maybe like $11 12 years ago when he retired. So with what that being said, these people had a different lifestyle than us.
Okay, so how do we bring it back though? That's the thing. We need we keep talking about how what the issue is, but my concern is not, I know what the issue is. We see the issue. We see the issue. How do we fix it? That's my thing.
Change our lifestyle. Teach people how to change their lifestyle. My dad didn't eat out like I do. I have a bad problem. I'm frugal and I love to save and stuff, but I hate cooking. So I eat out a lot. You know what I mean? So this is something I'm trying to work on, because, my husband might send me back to my mom because I don't cook a lot. So anyway, that's something that change our lifestyle. I think if we start by changing our lifestyle, we don't need a closet. We don't need like 10 pairs of shoes or 100 pairs of shoes. We don't need the new Jordan. You know what I mean? Just live within change our lifestyle and make savings or whatever a priority. I think that's how we can solve it.
Look, I mean, the crazy thing about this whole thing is, and maybe, an argument could be made. Part of the reason why the old days were better is because they didn't have access to the things that we have now, right? The reason that we invested in Black, because we couldn't go anywhere else for our stuff, so we had to do it. Whereas now, where you gave people options and we're in a consumer heavy marketing. I mean, this is a machine. I mean, they have a vested interest. America was built on our backs, and it's continuously being ridden on our backs because they want us to be in debt and working our 9 to 5s, and then if we can work extra to pay off the lifestyle that we're trying to attain. That's
The
pretty much
OTB.
this American dream, the whole bootstrap idea that they talk about, and it's ingrained in us, and the mechanisms are in place. That's what we see, and then we're faced with all of the signs. I mean, it's become a warfare now that we are zombies to our phones, and so if they make things, the things that are bad for you, they're more accessible, and you don't even have to leave your house. You can just click. Now they're delivering things within 2 days. In some cases, that same day, Amazon
The
will
next
come to your
day,
house.
yeah.
So
DJ says facts, Elise.
yeah,
Facts.
so
Big
it's like
fact.
this system is designed for us to be in debt and to be
Yes.
pretty much slaves.
And to be poor, to be
This is-
more
this is-
poor.
Yeah, to be poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Let me
How do we
Go
jump
ahead.
off? How do we
I
jump
was
off?
gonna,
the-
and I was gonna
I-
tell you guys something about how when you were talking about the system, Elise. In 2011, the bank, the Federal Reserve, OCC had to come up with the regulations to show in your credit card statement how much you will pay the credit card if you just pay the minimum and how long, and then and how many fees you, and also in the bank account, the bank has to give you options. I mean, you have to, not option, like you have to tell the bank if you want to overdraw your account with your debit card if you don't have the money, and you have to tell them if you want to decline you can either decline it or let overdraw the bank. We didn't have that before 2011. People were buying stuff for $1, they were getting $37 overdraft fee, right? So when OCC step up and put that regulation, do you know what the bank does? The bank tell you that option, it become like a, how you call it, a upsell for the bankers.
Yeah.
That means you're supposed to sell the customer to overdraw this. I mean, the option, so they can have the option to overdraw their account.
So
You know what I mean? But
can I tell you guys my
I had a bank
overdraft story?
didn't exist.
So real quick, hold on. So now the banks they all have this restriction on refunding fees. I can only refund 2 fees for a customer. Before I could, you refund, I had more limits. But when it start like that, we're not making much money on overdraft anymore because those people, they're not overdrawing their account that much anymore because they have the options. So the people are doing a little better.
So let me tell y'all my overdraft story, right? So I can't remember what year it was. I had to switch accounts. So I had my account at the same bank and I closed out one account and opened a new one, just transferred money from that account to a new one. And PayPal at that time was going to the switch of we use the account first. I closed my account, 0 balance. So now I go to PayPal and I bought something that was like something menial. And I put it on a credit card because I had, so they attempted to charge the account that was on file, $36. It didn't go through. So they tried it again within a few hours. And then eventually I got a notice that I had 4 overdrawn.
Yep.
And then they still, so now I'm like, all right, that's on you. I closed my account. And then
it's on you, boy. It's on you, boy.
And then about a year later, I go to open a bank account. I got declined.
Yes,
Like,
your
what,
check systems. Yeah.
So I go to a different bank. Declined again.
Yeah.
That's how I learned about check systems.
Yes.
But see, the thing they forgot was I'm Judy Sineas. I am
Oh,
not
I
paying
know.
y'all this much money. So I did end up getting PayPal to take 2 of those payments. And
Right.
then the bank had to take 2 of those payments. So they refunded it. And I think I like make $4 on this in the process.
Yeah,
But
it's things like that that are, if you look at the balance sheets of banks,
Mhm.
banks make almost more money off of frivolous fees than they
yes,
make off of their actual investment. So
that's
your
the
original
thing though,
question
is like
was,
if you don't know when
Not
you could,
anymore. Not
yeah,
anymore, Graylin. Not
but see, the
anymore.
thing
The
is
fee
those they
income
still have
lesson. Oh, I
ways.
can tell you. I can tell
They
you.
still have
My PNL. I can tell you.
overdraft fees count.
see here's the thing is that they may not have the same luxury with the
Overdraft.
with your but because like I'm looking at this where it's like I close an account. What business
Because
of
it gives you 30 days. You have 30
no, but see, no. See, here's the thing. I close an account.
ACH. That's why they tell you to stop all ACH because an ACH transaction can reopen the account as long as it's within 30 days.
The
No,
If you
but
read
see,
the
that's
re-
what I'm
if you
talking
read the
about.
rules and regulations that they give you
But
that you throw away when you open the account, you
Yeah,
would have
those
seen that.
that book that they want us to read.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The answer to
here's
your
the
situation,
thing,
Judy,
though.
is
You
they
see,
know exactly what they're doing and why.
that's what I'm saying. That's what
They
I'm
know
saying. 'Cause
exactly what they're
it
doing
was
and why.
definitely a setup. It's definitely setting us up to fail because
It's a tax.
I
It's a tax
Setting
on
us up to
interest on
fail.
being poor.
That's the right word.
It's a
That's the
tax
right
on interest on
word.
being poor.
Yes, that's the
We,
right
we,
word.
we're
My
doing,
heart will
we're
bleed,
looking at this,
guys. My heart will bleed.
we're looking at poor people and we're asking them why they can't stop being poor,
Exactly.
right? Whose fault is it? How do we fix it? It's
Exactly.
institutional.
Exactly.
I don't pay overdraft fees. Therefore, my account costs me
either.
nothing.
Nothing.
But my poor clients do it routinely.
Yep.
It's a tax.
And you
It's
go
a tax on them. It's
And
a
then you-
poverty tax.
yeah.
And when we have to start having some really serious conversations about America and the way it is. See, America got smart. At one point, America said, we're going to enslave black people, black Africans. That's who we're going to enslave. One day they got smart. And they said, why enslave black people? We can enslave everyone. And how do we do that? Debt.
Mhm.
You can't get credit if you don't use credit.
Right.
If I stop using my credit and pay cash for everything, my credit score will go down to zero and no one will
Yes.
loan me money.
Oh,
I must play their game. I must. People, this stuff is so deep. The Treasury Department is not a part of the United States government. It's a cartel of bankers. It's the banks. America pays debt because it buys its money from an outside entity.
Mhm.
So when you look at this, so how do we change the current state of things in our community and for that fact, all over?
educate.
The only way we do that is by people getting smarter. And the way how do we get them smarter? We don't tell them what we feel like they should know. We tell them what they need to know. We don't tell them at a
What
high
we
level.
need them to know,
we
not
get
what they
down
need to
where
know.
they're at.
They
Say
tell them
again?
what they need. They say what they need them to know, not what the people actually need to know.
Exactly.
We have to tell people, listen, I understand you want to buy this purse. Do you have money saved? No. Let me teach you how to save money so you can buy the purse. But then that same principle, I'm gonna come back to you later on and show you that principle in another place.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I'm gonna
Yeah.
show you how to apply that principle. I'm gonna teach you how to exercise. You'll lose a little bit of weight, and then you'll keep on losing weight. And I can add into that diet once you perfect the exercise portion. Because without that, people are going to stay poor because America wants you poor.
Yeah.
It wants you poor.
That system wants you
Overdraft
poor.
fee. Think of what overdraft fee really is. It's them saying,
Poor tax.
I'll finance you money. I know you can't manage your money, but I'll finance you on that money. And I'll call the fee because what happened was the banks had to start using truth in lending statements for it because the government said, no, what you're giving them is a loan. And they were like, no, it's a fee. It's a loan, right? And so that's when they had to start changing things, right? So you take people who have a credit score of 375, right? And you loan them money because you know they don't pay it back. You know they're going to struggle to pay it back. It is a tax on the poor. Until we start to teach the poor. Look, I'm from the projects. I'm from Cabrini Green Housing Projects in Chicago, right? My mama didn't leave the projects until she was grown and married, right? We learn differently. I got tired of being poor. So I educated myself on how to not be poor. And I went to white America, took their jobs, right? Because they had to teach me stuff in order to execute their job. And when I had enough, I applied it to myself. We had to start teaching our people to do the same thing. Use your resources. Fran works at a bank. She says, I don't work for myself. That's great. But Fran, look at all the information you have. How do we commoditize that information that white America has given you? How do we commoditize that so that you can now, one, make more money for yourself, and two, sleep better at night because you don't have to have your heart bleed because you know that people are defrauding themselves by taking overdraft fees. How do we do that? So the conversation doesn't just go to poor people. It also goes to people like the four of us and say, how do we do better and put back as well? And I'm off the high horse.
It's sad. It's really sad.
Let me unmute myself so I can say. All right. So I know we've been talking about spending and spending and spending. I know one of the things that I know hurts our community. I mean, starting with GoFundMe being the retirement life insurance, medical insurance plan. But what can we do to teach our community more about future? Because one of the issues that I know we often have is that whole people don't understand it. That's the first thing. I've had conversations with people who will and Carl was talking about being smart with a 70-30 plan. We were talking about savings. But people will say, hey, I'd rather have the extra $10 in my check every 2 weeks over putting that $10 into a 401k or a whatever, and let the company add $10 with them. So is there something we can do? How do we teach? Like, do we need to be teaching this? Do we
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, Judy, much to what you're saying, anytime anybody would sit down with somebody like me or Francisca or Graylin, it's hard to talk about future planning when you're not even doing what you should be doing for today, right? And so, getting them to even save a couple of bucks and, not going to Starbucks every day for their coffee, making coffee at home, or, not to call Francesca out,
It's okay. It's okay.
Instead of 5 times a week would make a big difference. So it's those are the simple things. Now, future planning, honestly, and this is my industry, so I'm just going to say it, at the bare minimum, at the very, very least, get you some insurance. And not only life, but also disability, because it's a difficult conversation to have. And I have it all the time with people, because no one wants to think about their death, especially when they are not in a financial position to feel like, okay, they're going to leave something behind. And it's getting them to understand what insurance is about. For God's sakes, you have to get insurance on your car and your phone. Why don't you think you need insurance on yourself? It's the weirdest thing in this. I've never understood the dichotomy of the human mind for them not to understand the value of life. Like, you are your biggest resource. And so if you cannot get up every day to do what you need to do, then i.e. there's no money coming in. You can't plan for the future if you are not protecting what you at least have today. And in the event that something does happen to you, you at least know that you're not leaving behind your debt, or you're not leaving behind, things that you couldn't get done. That's what the insurance does. And there are a number of different ways you can set that up where you can utilize it as a tool that we have not even in our community even begin to understand how to use. But at the same time, it's just, at least like Graylin said, you kind of have to meet them where they are, and just getting them to understand that fact that, okay, maybe I need to get myself something to protect me, and just in case I do get injured and I become disabled, or God forbid something does happen to me, what's going to happen to my wife and kids? What's going to happen to my mom? Just those type of things that you can at least relate a little bit to that, and at least have that conversation with them.
Right. I'd like to chime in. I agree, Elise. You can't talk about future planning when the person cannot even afford today, the expenses that they have today. But with the people that I've worked with, young professionals that have the means to put some money away, that are working somewhere, and they have the money, the means to put some money away. What I usually do is I have a young lady that works with me. She's like my little mentee. She didn't know what a 401k, how it works, and all this stuff. And after I took the time to explain, what a 401k and how Social Security will not be enough. Just Social Security will not be enough. And who knows, by the time you retire, you may not even be here, right? So I had to explain to her, how a 401k work, and, how much if as her income goes, she will contribute, all that good stuff. And then she had an aha moment. You know what I mean? She had an aha moment. But I have to do it with these young professionals. She's 25. Now she's doing the max, and the bank is putting, and actually she's doing 6% and the bank doing 7%. So, and she started feeling bad. She's like, oh my God, I started working at 20, at 22 at the bank. So I should have done that a long time ago, friend. I wish you were, I was working with you then. So that's what I do with young professionals, and they can see the value in it. And then people that are 50 that need to catch up, it's a hard problem. A lot of people, they have the money, and self-employed people, let's talk about self-employed people. A lot of those business owners, they have nothing in retirement. Those 1099 employees, they have nothing in retirement. They don't even open a Roth IRA because they don't understand it. They don't think in the future. I met people like that used to have businesses. Now they're older, they're 70, they are just banking on their Social Security once they used to have a business. So it's all about educating people, but meeting them where they are. Like, if you don't have any money, you broke or whatever, I'm not going to talk about future planning, but I will talk to a young professional or somebody that's working in the 50, helping them to catch up, so they can be ready for retirement.
But is that true? Is that how it should be, though? That I mean, it is true that the person's basic needs first need to be met before they can think about certain things. But should we really not be having the conversation with certain people? Because I think doesn't everyone need the knowledge?
We're not saying that we're not having the conversation at all. We can have the conversation, but getting them to actually do it, it's kind of like pointless, because they really don't have the money. They don't even have money to save right now. You see what I mean? They have more expenses than their income. You can have the conversation to make the person think, oh my God, you know what I mean? I'm behind. Oh my gosh, I need this. To see how important it is, but getting them to do it, it's kind of unrealistic to do that. Yeah. I don't know if you'll agree, Lizzie.
Yeah, with future planning, again, we're not just talking about $5 a month. We're talking about anywhere between 3 to 6% of your paycheck every time. And some folks, when the company does it, it's like, okay, well, that and that's kind of the only way that works is that our mentality is kind of like you almost have to get it before they even touches their bank account, because relying on somebody to say, hey, I'm going to contribute to my Roth IRA this year, because we have the conversation every year. Well, it's time for your annual report. You can put up to $14,000 in here. $14,000? Yeah, well, that's what you could have done. But they're not thinking about that, because that's next level stuff. So that's why the company, when they're working and they're like, okay, well, it's coming out of my paycheck, I don't see it, so I only focus on my take home pay. Then it's almost as if that's how you have to structure somebody in terms of planning. And honestly, that's kind of how most of us have to be. That you're going to get an X amount of money automatically, whether it's an auto thing where it just takes the money from your account before you start spending it. What has to go to your bills, what goes towards your savings, and what goes towards your investments to retirement. That's where the discipline starts. It's about forming good habits, and financial, especially with future planning, it's about discipline and having those good habits and knowing that, hey, I'm not going to see the benefit now, but let me blink in 5 years and I'll see what's happened, how well it is, and what position I'm in a better position to do more. And much to Francesca's point, when you get them young like that, it's easy to do that because life hasn't hit yet, and you could see a kid say, I can do 100 or 200 a month. That's not going to hurt my lifestyle. But once you start popping out the kids and the mortgage, and then you're just working, and then you're like, wow, you want me to give $1,000 a month? Yeah, we do. And you need to. And you can afford it if you cut this out.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more tougher of a pill for them to swallow.
Let me ask this question, and I would love it if all of you would answer, since all of you have children. What are you teaching your children about finance and wealth, and how are you doing it?
You on mute,
You're on
Graylin.
mute, Graylin.
Sorry, thank you. So I am teaching my children. I've taught them the value of money, I think, right? So they learned how to save and how to put money away and all that stuff. But I have, as a business owner, I am teaching my children how to build wealth through ownership. So, my son is 12 and he works here in my office. He comes in with me. I teach him.
Child labor law?
Yes, I will. So I teach him that my business is growing so that my money never stops, right? I can retire, but my money never will, right? I'm teaching him that principle. My daughter is 17. So I'm teaching her, hey, you want a car? Let's not buy this car to keep. Let's buy this car to sell. So the moment we get it, we buy it cheap. Let's sell it high, right? And continue to do that. Don't get attached to those material possessions in the sense that you're like, oh, this gives me value and worth. It's a thing. And it's a thing that can help you make money. So I am focused on teaching them growth, right? I've taught them saving, but I'm teaching them growth, because with the proper growth, the saving becomes kind of it almost becomes a little secondary. So I'm trying to teach them how to amass more, how to take ownership. I'm teaching them the freedom that comes with ownership, right? I can say whatever I want to say. The only people I've been holding to are my client, right? And so when I say certain things, my client's like, that's why I like him. He says exactly how he feels, right? So that's what I'm teaching them. Now, as they get older, I'm teaching them more complex financial issues, more complex things. I'm teaching them about how the economy works. So my biggest thing is to teach them how that economics is not about national economics. Who cares? All you care about is your personal economics, right? America can be bankrupt, right? And you can move to Jamaica, right? Right? If you have the right money. You can move anywhere in the world if your economy is healthy. So that's what I'm trying to teach them, is how to create their own personal economy of growth of growth, so they never have to worry about needing something else.
Cool. Go ahead,
Sim-
Elise.
yeah, similar to me. You know, I have begun to have money talks with my oldest. She's about 12, and we've done everything from, you know, her having her savings account when she was a little girl, and now that, you know, she you know, understanding that, hey, yes, you know, you used to get pretty much everything that you want, but now that you're old enough and you have a little money in the bank, oh, you want that? Okay, I'll put in half. You put in the rest. We have those type of conversations. Um, Even entrepreneurship. We've been having a lot of talks about, hey, if you have a business idea, if you come to me with an idea, I think that a lot of them now, I mean, and that's kind of one of the positives about social media and YouTube. They see their peers who are now who are
Hmm.
creating businesses that aren't traditional, and they're looking at them like, hey, I can do that. I want to do that. And so it breeds that creativity for them to understand ownership, understand business, and me having that background, I can help guide that. But I think the most important thing that I'm teaching them, or what I'm doing for them, is making sure that I'm setting them up in terms of certain things. Like, you know, and some people have different philosophies about this, but, you know, like I said, this is my industry. They all have life insurance, whole life insurance policies on them as soon as they were born, and them understanding what that money does and how by the time they're 18 and what they can do with it, is something that, you know, you do that for your child now, that later on they don't have to worry about. It's already there. It's already ingrained in them. So just certain things that, you know, we as parents, now keep in mind, I think one of the things I always stress with parents, they always want to do things for their kid to give them that leg up. And I always have to remind them, no, you got to pay yourself first. That child, they have you know, their whole life to work. You only have this window to do what you need to do for you. So don't be too overly concerned about, you know, the child. Yes, you need to do for them, but you need to do for yourself first. But when you can, you definitely do stuff. And those tangibles that we've been talking about, the things that you can't see, getting that set up for them early, so that way they're not mired in debt when it comes time for college, and they're not needing to take loans and stuff like that. You get that stuff done now versus, you know, you worried about getting them the latest and greatest Jordans and new gaming systems that are going to depreciate, and within a year and a half they're not even going to want anymore because the new thing is out and they want
Yeah.
that. And so yeah, there's that. I think it's teaching the kids that, you know, what the true value of money is and what they need to prioritize.
How old are your kids, Elise?
My oldest is 12. I have an 8-year-old. She's a girl, a 8-year-old daughter, and a 4-year-old son.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I have one daughter. I have one child. She's 6, and she's my world. As you could see, she was trying to come to hug mommy. So what I've been doing is actually I teach a I taught a financial literacy class. I did a career day slash financial literacy class at her kindergarten class well, back in May. And it was amazing to see how the kids knew a lot about money, and they knew the difference between needs and wants. So where I'm at with Deanna is teaching her like what's a want and what's a need. She have a lot of toys, and she always want one more doll, and I'm like, you want it, but you don't need it, you know? And I teach her like that, you know, as adult, we have to work because sometimes she's like, "Mommy, do you have a day off today?" I'm like, "No, baby, we got to work because let me tell you, this house can't pay for itself. We have to work to pay the, you know, I have to talk in her language that she will understand that this house will pay for themselves. And then she has allowances and she has a piggy bank, all her birthday money. I cash her checks and I put her in the piggy bank. And she always, whenever she want a game on on her iPad, she's like, "Mommy, can I use my money in my piggy bank? I know I have money there." I'm like, "No, that money is for saving. So some of your allowance money, you can give it to me. You know, can save to $1, and then you can give me the other dollar so you can buy that game." Stuff like that, little stuff like that, step by step. But you better believe that I have a whole curriculum for her at every age level. And what I've done for her, she also has whole life, Elise. Um, and she also have a college prepaid plan, and she also have her own account that I put a direct deposit in her account, like a small, teeny bit of my paycheck, but it's, you know, it's going up there every time I get paid. It just go to another bank where I don't even see it. I forgot about it. So I'm building for her. I don't want her to take loans, you know, or, you know, like I had to. You know, I want her to be better, in a better position financially, more prepared than I am. And I think that's what we all should do as parents for our children. You know, as my niece I was talking about, you know, she's so different from her mother. You know, she's so different money wise from the mother. It all depends on the individual, but you do have the responsibility as parents to teach your children about how to use money, how to, and also don't give them everything they ask for. I don't give her everything she asks for. I make her work for it. So she doesn't take everything for granted. So she doesn't feel like, okay, everything is given to me. You know, I started working when I was 15 years old. So, you know, I had just came from Haiti. I was here for a year. I started working at 15 years old. So she has, you know, she's the only child. Yes, she's spoiled in a certain way, but we also have to give them, hold them accountable, make sure that they do stuff, they earn their money, make sure basically they earn their money, even at an early age.
So that's a question I was going to ask. Do all your kids get their own money or earn some type of money?
My
Yeah.
daughter does.
Not mine's are not for the chores. I'm a little old school. It's like, hey, mom and dad work. We expect you to do certain chores, and because you're home, you're clothed, you're fed, and we're not asking you to do anything else.
No, but
But yes, they do additional things. If there are additional things, like for example, you know, you might call child labor laws, but yes, I did hire my daughter for a project and she got paid for it, so
okay.
she understood what that was. Yeah.
Okay, so they all have a way of earning money. So
Yes.
LaBelle K was, I guess she was agreeing with you, friend, when you were saying needs versus wants is a key distinction, and yes, make them work for it. Just suggesting, in case of any other guests interested, every Sunday at their church, take the kids out of service and spend an hour teaching them about money. Hey, okay. So I have just that my main question. I have my main question that I normally ask is, what are you guys doing for self-care before we wrap up?
Wow. Um, I know for me, exercise is big. I mean, even though the weather is, I still, due to COVID, I still haven't stepped foot in a gym. And so all of my exercising has been outdoors or inside. And I find that to be therapeutic, especially with everything going on in the world and, you know, in the stresses of trying to work in this new normal. There that you definitely need an outlet. I mean, some days are good, some days are bad, and so I just um, yeah, that's that. And then it also pays to have a a friend that's a therapist. So they don't even know that
She's tough, though.
they're giving you advice
Hey,
or
hey,
they're
hey.
giving you treatment.
Oh,
Um,
that was Regine. Wait, that was Regine. That La Belle K. That's Regine. Hey, Regine. Friend, what are you doing for self-care?
So for self-care, right? This is like my from gratitude, maybe because whew, this is so tough for me. Like I'm a work in progress, in 2018, I lost 45 pounds and I gained a lot of it back, but every Sunday, my schedule is crazy, but every Sunday I have a high school friend that live in my community. We walk 3 miles. We do a 5K walk every Sunday. And then my husband, remember I told you guys I don't like name brand or whatever, but I want something of, that's gonna benefit. Well, anyway, long story short, got me a Peloton. So I'm waiting for it.
I wanted one.
Yes, I'm getting the new
I didn't want to
bike.
pay the money, but I wanted one.
I know. I work really hard for it. But anyway, and it was supposed to be here 2 weeks ago, but they got backed up, I guess, and deported to Los Angeles. So it's going to be December 1st, God willing. So I'll be riding with my friend. She has one because we can ride together too. So I'm excited. Yeah. And I didn't have to finance it. So thank God.
Awesome. See, I wanted one of those, but I looked at the
Oh,
price and I looked at the
I
the
know.
maintenance and like the
The
screen is so much money. I'm like,
the transcription. Oh, what the subscription. I mean, one more
mhm.
thing. My favorite hobby is dancing, and I've been really stressed lately. So I just start back taking dancing lessons again. I used to dance when I was a young girl, so this dancing place is right behind my the studio right behind my job. So I'm doing cha cha, salsa, merengue, and rumba.
Nice.
Nice. That's awesome. Graylin had to run because Graylin has class. So yeah, so he didn't get to answer that question, but I'm gonna make sure he answers it. But that is I know actually that's not all I wanted to talk about, but we've been talking for a minute, so I know you guys have to get going. So
Yeah,
I guess we'll leave it for another conversation
yeah, we
another
can have
time.
another two. I mean, like a second part two.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. But I just want to say thank you guys so very much for hanging out. It's been such a long time. Oh, Regine says Latin dancing.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
love
she's
that.
yeah, so I just want to say thank you guys for sharing your time and sharing your knowledge and sharing your wisdom. Let me say let me say hi to a few people, and I think so I'll start with Imani. Thank you for coming through. Mac was here. I don't know if he's still here, but Mac was here. Dan Lee, thank you. Friend, I have Francisca here and she's commenting in the chat.
Well, my coefficient is still in my high
Mila,
school.
Mila, thank you so much. Didier, thank you. Carl hung out for quite a bit.
Yeah,
Fifi, thank you. Thank you, Carl. Thank you. Who
La
else?
Belle K.
That's Regine. Thank you so very much for hanging out with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming through and hanging out with us. So we'll continue having these conversations on the 19th. Our next conversation is mental health in the pandemic. That's what we're gonna not in the pandemic, holiday mental health, especially during the pandemic. That's what we'll be talking about in about 2 weeks. I believe that's the 19th. So if you're here or if you're watching this and you haven't done yeah, just make sure you stop by at 7. Do you guys have any final thoughts, final things you want to share?
I just want to say I learned a lot. I mean, I had fun doing this. I'm always the moderator, so it's nice to be a panelist. So thank you. Although sometimes I don't know how to act, I think I'm like, hosting. So sorry about that.
We're good.
Yeah, thank you for this. Thank you for the invitation. But I really think that we should talk about generational wealth. I know that we talked about, the debt and all that stuff we talked about, but I think it's really important. And because Elise is going to talk about wealth transfer and all that stuff. You know what I'm talking about, Elise. So I
Yeah.
think it's very important that we talk about that. I think our community needs that. So thank you so much for having me. I learned from Graylin and Elise a lot. So I had a great time.
Yeah, I'll echo everything you said. I really think that it's great, and thank you, Judy, for still being true and doing this, because clearly, when you ask about solutions, this is one of them. This is what we need to do. We need to keep having these conversations. They need to be engaging. They need to be direct, and not necessarily polished with big lights and shows or whatever. It's just actually having dialogue, and I really feel that we can all learn from each other, and also inspire others to do that. And then also by putting it on this platform, we can always share it. I mean, this was live, but we those that were not here, or people that might know that could benefit from this, it's just a matter of just sharing the link, and folks can watch it at their own leisure. So so again, thank you guys. This was fun. I enjoyed it, and hope until next time, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I had a great time. I appreciate you guys for coming. Everyone who's watching, as always, I shout out the people who commented and who engaged in the chats, because I know those people are there. If I didn't shout you out personally, that's because you were here quietly and I didn't know you were here. But I still like you. I still appreciate the fact that you came and hung out with us. And that really is all we have for today. Good morning, world. Have an awesome day.